Hot dogs on a side of -30.
Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of Alberta Backroad. On this trip, we went from the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta, up to an abandoned town called Pine Point in the Northwest Territories via the Fort Chipewyan winter road. The distance traveled and the route, along with the time it took, is in the picture there. Have a look, watch the video, and enjoy. So before we start, I want to apologize for the poor video quality and the shakiness of it. It wasn't intended to be a YouTube video at first. It was kind of just for us for personal record, and we kind of decided, well, hey, let's post it up. We began the trip by heading north on Highway 63. It's about a 110 kilometer drive from the city of Fort McMurray to the beginning of the Fort Chipewyan winter road and the staging area. The first part of the highway is a divided highway, and it's pretty easy going, but it breaks down to a single-lane highway after the Syncrude roundabout, and turns to a pretty bumpy dirt road after the Fort Hills oil sand site. The dirt road gets pretty icy as well, as you can tell by this video. We stopped for a break, and then continued on down the winter road. The views on this drive are just spectacular. This road offers everything from rivers, stunning lakes, dense forest areas, and flat marshy areas. We decided to stop at one of the lakes called Twin Lakes, stretch our legs, and make a cup of coffee before heading on down the road. And for this part of the trip, the weather was really in our favor.
Coffee on? Oh-ho!
Coffee on!
At around the midpoint on this road, there's a rest stop with washrooms. We decided to stop there and stretch our legs before continuing on the rest of the way to Fort Chipewyan.
Having fun, Ricky?
Yes, bye.
Yes, bye.
Before too long, we came up to our first water crossing. The rule with most of these water crossings is one vehicle at a time. If you do decide to take this trip, please respect that rule, as excessive weight on the water crossings can damage them and put the whole winter road down for repair. We decided to stop and make some quick lunch just outside Fort Chipewyan.
What's the #1 roadside meal?
Hot dogs, my guy! Hot dogs on a side of -30.
We took a drive through Fort Chipewyan to have a look around, and to be honest, it's a really nice little town. It's pretty crazy to think how isolated they are, considering their only access is by plane or the seasonal winter road. I think they used to run a barge, but I'm not sure if they still run that. We stopped for gas, then headed down the road towards Fort Smith. The first section of the road to Fort Smith was very, very rough. We had to stop and air down to about 15-20 psi in order to get about 30 kilometers an hour. I do not recommend trying to make any time on this road, as it's extremely windy, tight, but it's a beautiful drive with a dense forest, and the river crossings are just fantastic. We stopped on the first river crossing to take a quick break and get some pictures. The view there was just outstanding. After the second river crossing, the road got a little smoother, but one thing to keep an eye out for on this trip is wildlife. There's lots of buffalo on this road, and as you can see in this video, we had a herd of them kind of running out in front of us. That's one big animal you don't want to run into. After a long drive, we arrived in the town of Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories. We took a little drive through the town just to get a feel for things before heading off to our hotel.
We made it, Ricky!
We headed to the hotel, and I must say, if you ever find yourself in the Northwest Territories in Fort Smith, I highly recommend staying at the Wood Buffalo Inn. The owner, Peter, is a fantastic guy, and the rooms were great. After getting our keys and unloading our jeeps, we headed in to cook supper. I cooked up some steaks, pasta, and some Caesar salad for supper, and it was on Justin the next day to make breakfast. After a fantastic bacon-filled breakfast, we headed off towards Pine Point. The highway there is really long and ice-covered, and you're not too likely to see very many vehicles, so I recommend using caution and taking it slow. As in most spots on this highway, when it's in a condition like this, the 90km/h speed limit is just a little too high. We reached the road to Pine Point and tried to get in. The unfortunate thing is, it was snowed in and there was no way that our jeeps could get into the abandoned town. We tried a couple times and decided to turn back. However, the whole trip wasn't a complete waste. On the way back on the highway, there was a big herd of buffalo, and they weren't bothered by us one bit, so we could get up real close and get some nice pictures and videos. The size of these animals really shows next to my Jeep. They are just massive. After the buffalo scurried off, we headed back to Fort Smith, got some sleep, and left first thing in the morning to head back to Fort McMurray. That night we got quite a bit of snow, making the roads pretty bad in the morning. We decided to trade Jeeps for a little bit. And of course I hit a pretty bad rut just in Jeep and ended up getting pulled into the ditch. But we made quick work of getting it out and getting it back on the road.
What the? What? So George drives it for 10 fucking minutes, puts her in the ditch.
Drive my Jeep for 10 minutes.
I know, right?
10 minutes.
10 minutes in it, man.
Thankfully, no one was hurt and nothing was damaged. With a good pull from the winch and a little bit of throttle, we had the Jeep out of there in no time. On the way back, we decided to make a quick stop in this small spot called Peace Point. Peace Point overlooks the Peace River, and man, what a view. What a place this would be to set up camp in the summer.